Welcome, everyone. My name is Jon Clay, VP of Threat Intelligence here at Trend Micro, and welcome to episode 5 of Trend Talks Threat Research. And this week, I'm going to talk about a number of different things. Over the last 2 weeks, we actually haven't published a whole lot of threat research. So what I thought I would do is do a recap of my favorite research items that we published in 2023. Note that in the show description or show notes, you'll be able to have links to all of these researches that we have published over last year. This is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, last time I did the 2024 predictions. So you can take a look at that show if you haven't watched it already. But take a look at that one. But in this episode, we're going to talk about my favorites. So the first one is a research. We've been doing research in the underground communities for many, many years. So we've published reports on the Russian underground, cybercriminal underground, the Chinese, the French, the South America, Brazilian, Japanese, North America, all of these. But we are starting to see a phenomenon happening in the underground markets where they're actually building businesses now. And we published a research paper looking at the different types of businesses that are forming in the underground communities. So we share examples of small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and even large businesses that are growing in that space. And that's going to be a difficult situation for us as defenders because they're actually, again, they're organizing better. They're getting more services and offering more services to others. The services are getting better and better, and that just is going to make their ability to target and successfully breach organizations much more effectively in 2024. So so we get into some of the in-depths in terms of what they're doing, how they're forming, what these organizations look like, what kind of management structure, et cetera. So if you're interested in looking at this phenomenon that we're seeing, take a look at that research. It's pretty fun, it's pretty interesting, and it gets into a lot of good details there. The second one I wanted to highlight is understanding ransomware from a digital or a data science aspect. So we actually looked into this aspect of how ransomware has evolved and looked at it from a data science perspective, which is an interesting way to look at ransomware. We partnered with Waratah Analytics, which is a data modeling, risk analysis, and exposure management service provider. So they had some really good insights into this area as well as ourselves. And using data science experiments and visualization tools, we mapped out ransomware-related activity, allowed the researchers behind the paper to determine changes in ransomware difficulties in their day-to-day operations, compare similarities in their business processes, ascertain difficult or methodologies laid out in the paper, provides a snapshot of the ongoing and in present day ransomware circles, but more importantly, detailed how these data science approaches can be used to help defenders like yourselves in their own investigations of ransomware. So this is a really different type of look at what ransomware does. One of the things that we learned about this is that every time a ransom is paid, it can actually fund anywhere from 6 to 11 new ransomware attacks against victims. So that kind of information you're going to see in this paper. So it's a really in-depth look at it from a data science perspective, which hasn't been done very often in the past, if at all. So take a look at that one. Also, throughout the last actual several years, we've been publishing what we call our Ransomware Spotlight articles. And these are articles that we basically detail out information about a ransomware group, including their TTPs across the different attack life cycles. So how do they initially access an organization? How do they lateral move? What kind of, what do they do once they're inside? How, what is their encryption process, et cetera, all of that. We also look at the victimology of these groups, geolocation, and we map it all to the MITRE attack framework. So that'll help you out. But in 2023, we updated information about a group or we included a new group. But the groups we focused on in 23 were Magniber, Royal, Target Company, Play, Akira, and Trigona. So those are all very good articles if you want to learn more about these actor groups, especially if they're one of the groups that may be targeting your industry or your geolocation, because we include that information in that out there. Another one that I thought was very interesting is the future of whaling attacks via AI-powered and what we call harpoon whaling. So phishing attacks obviously continue to be very successful. And we look at the use of AI and generative AI by the adversaries and how they will get much better at targeting victims of these types of attacks. So harpoon whaling and whaling are basically attacks that target your high profile users inside your organization, and how they will craft these messages to make them very compelling, very realistic, and basically very easy to tempt the user into clicking a link, opening an attachment, or in BEC, maybe getting that user to wire transfer money, but something like that. So another good article, that research paper that looks at this, at the phenomenon of phishing and where it's going in the future, being with the adversaries using AI, artificial intelligence. And then the last one I wanted to highlight is an interesting area, again, going back to the underground communities out there. If we think about who the hackers are these days, most people have the impression that it's mostly men and males. And it's still quite true, but we wanted to take a look at the gender, and more specifically women, females in hacking, and the use of females in doing targeting, the threat actors out there. So in this one, we focused on, what they do, what the dominant gender is, what the growing number of women are doing in the adversary area. So what types of roles they play, what do they do, what their actions are, and so it's an interesting look at this area, which hasn't been talked about a lot in the industry. Not many people look at women in the hacking role, so we thought we would take a look at that and highlight some of this. So it's quite an interesting one. If it's a research that you might be interested in learning about women in we talk about women in tech. This is women in hacking, so to speak. So that might be of interest to you. So hopefully all of these research papers help you better understand kind of the different areas in which Trend Micro research has covered in 2023. You can tell it's quite broad. We have probably one of the broadest research groups in the industry in terms of the areas we look at. In terms of whether it's the underground communities, whether it's automotive, whether it's OT, traditional ransomware attacks, phishing attacks. We cover all of those. We have people in there. Vulnerability research is huge for us. We have a lot of articles around there. If you're interested in any of our research, you can go to trendmicro.com. There's a tab at the top called Research. You can go into there and you can see all the reports, like you can get access to this latest prediction report there, or we're going to be coming out with our year-end 2023 roundup report here in the next couple of months as we analyze. We're in the process of analyzing all the data from 23 and what we saw. There's also all the, obviously, blogging and data and information that we share in there. So go to that research tab. You can find all that information. So hopefully you enjoyed episode 5 of Trend Talks Threat Research. I'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about an actual specific research that we have published more in depth. So I'm kind of, again, as I've mentioned in previous ones, I'm kind of doing a combo here where one every 2 weeks I'll publish one. Will be a conglomerate of a bunch of different research reports that we have published to give you a digest and maybe give you some ideas of why you would be interested in looking at those. And then the next one would be on a specific research report that I want to go in more in depth on. So everybody, thank you for joining me in episode 5 of Trend Talks Threat Research. I'll be back in 2 weeks for the next one. Have a great day and stay safe out there. Bye-bye.